I'm pretty sure every single person in the competitive community wants 100% chest spawns, but there are some consequences of having this back in the game. I want to start this video off by saying I want 100% chest spawns. If you look at any tweet before a new season, I always am tweeting that I really want 100% chest spawns, and along with this meme. Now there's two considerations you need to take when looking at 100% chest spawns: non-custom lobbies and then also custom lobbies. For what I mean by custom lobbies is just lobbies that are 100 players only, such as FNCS finals, DreamHack finals, etc. Non-custom lobbies being opens, arena, any semis, basically these along the lines, because they are slightly different. For non-custom lobbies such as arena, 100% chest spawns is just more fun. There's less RNG, which is a lot less frustration, and having 100% chest spawns is just more competitive. The less RNG, the better. For custom lobbies, all of these things is true. However, there's a big difference here, which is yet again something we've talked about so many times: being contested. In the last FNCS, everyone in the top 3 of the regions was uncontested, and this is because being contested is too much of a detriment. Take Hen, Janus and Chapix in EU. They were top 3 after day 1, but unfortunately dropped down to the 7th. It was clear that when they're getting off their spawn in a good position, these guys were completely dominant, but because they were contested at Craggy Cliffs, it slowed them down way too much. Now, I've said this a few times, you need between 7 to 10 chests per person on your team to be able to win your region. Now, what I've heard about the chest drop rates from leakers is that it's between 50 to 80%, so it differs depending on the chest. So let's average that out at 66% chest spawn rate. If there was a 100% chest spawn rate, you would need between 5 to 7 chests, and remember this is potential chest spawns, not guaranteed chest spawns, per person in your POI to be able to actually play the game efficiently, and then come top 3 in your region. If you only need 5 chests per person on your team, that means your team needs 15 chests roughly, somewhere up to 21. With this in mind, there are so many more drop spots that now you could split because of this. Believers Beach, aka Sweaty Sands, has 36 chests, Dirty Docks has 36, Lazy Lake has 32, Steamy Stacks has 28, and Retail Row also has 28. So all of these POIs now become splittable, so if you land there with a team, you then don't have to grief each other off spawn and say, okay, we're not winning anymore, because you can actually leave with enough loot. There are other considerations such as you probably won't get enough metal in these drop spots, etc. But at the same time, some teams will now at least have enough loot to go and fight if they need to go and get some metal from another team they're going to fight later on. It gives you so many more options. But this is where the dark turn comes in. Splitting drops inevitably means teaming. Now, I want to give a brief explanation of this and why I don't think it's necessarily teaming as much, but I can understand why people think it is. This has mainly only happened in solo tournaments so far, so the solo invitational and solo FNCS, and I want to just use the winners as examples. I don't think they were teaming, and I'll go and explain that why as well. So in the solo invitational, Tayson and Janus both landed at Steamy Stacks. Now before this, they were duo partners, and then they both landed here. Janus actually ended up winning this tournament as well. MXR was also here, but a little bit more irrelevant. In the solo FNCS, so not the invitational, the season after that, Tayson and Janus landed here again, along with Kinzel, who was playing with them for some of the trio cups at that point. So again, an entire trio dropping in a POI. Now, people were looking at this saying, this is crazy, these guys are teaming off spawn. But in reality, in the solo FNCS, Tayson and Janus fought a lot of their matches. And I've actually covered that in my video already for them a long time ago for the solo FNCS. So yes, they were landing here as a team, but they were not teaming. Let's get this down right. Some people may say this is an issue with solos, but realistically, this is an issue when you can split a drop spot at all. Even if it's in trios and 2 trios could land at the same drop spot, 2 trios who are familiar with each other may land there and have a mutual understanding not to fight off spawn. They may not team because they might not specifically mention to each other, we're not going to fight, but any smart trio would know that you could get enough loot and then disengage from there. So yes, splitting drops definitely creates some issues, and if we look at the All-Stars tournament right now, it looks insane. Here's the drop map just for EU so far, and look at the amount of teams who are landing. This is obviously solos and POIs. No O'Reilly and Vadil. And if you move over, Webbs and Nays, Matzo Amplify. You've got Refsguard and Drea. You've got Verox, Michael, Aseti, Cami and Teak, all in the Teaks in Cami split. You've got Kaiser Tripper, and you've got Waka Flois. You've got Snazy and X-Weeze in the same drop spot. You've got Ardent and Pizza. You got Stormy Right and Toos. You get the idea. A lot of people are kind of getting up in arms about this, but the question I have to ask myself is, do I really care about this? Most of these teams will be dropping here anyway because that is still their drop spot regardless of who was going there. since they've practiced it in trios for so much. So it really depends on what the actual agreement is between these guys. When one player just decides to take this half of a POI and another decides to take another half of a POI, they've claimed it on Twitter, as long as there's not an express teaming like for Storm Surge or anything like this, I honestly don't really care about this too much personally. I know a lot of people do, but I actually don't see this being too bad. As long as they're actually going for Storm Surge tags on each other, taking opportunistic fights as they were, it's very obvious when players are actually teaming, but just landing at the same drop spot, I'm not overly fussed about that. I don't see it being too much of a difference as just teams claiming POIs in trios anyway. Now we're at a dilemma, however, and I think people will be very split on this opinion. If the drop spots are splittable, then there's almost definitely going to be teams there, and in trios, if there was 2 teams landing there, like I said, this could be 2 friendly teams who do the exact same thing that we've just seen in solos and I've just described there. If it's not splittable, then you have an issue where you're susceptible to one team, a top team, just being landed on by another team, and then not necessarily playing to their full potential and not winning, which again is also really not competitive. And there doesn't necessarily seem to be too many other options outside of this. You could, yes, change the map to have more drop spots, more POIs, so if they manage to put more drop spots, fantastic. But at the same time, that's really difficult for people to ask for way more drop spots on the map. The other alternative is something like Ninja Battles did, where there's less players on the map. Now, I don't know exactly what would be the perfect amount for a top level competition, but potentially if you were going to keep something like 80 players, just as an example, this would allow teams to be completely uncontested, not have to worry about teaming or being landed on and not being able to do well, because there is enough to work with there. I don't know what the amount of players would be, but it has been proven that this also works in high level competition and is very, very exciting to watch as well. I'm a bit undecided on this. I do think that 100% chest spawns is the way to go. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. Peace.